in August 2009, Visa Wellington on a Plate was born, and the first year was quite small. It's about embracing what's great here in Wellington and in New Zealand.
Do you drink beer? Would you like a beer?
I run a beer festival.
Twice, also known as 2 Weeks in Creative Endeavour, shares the stories, insights and journeys to now of social enterprises, creatives and innovators from Wellington, New Zealand. I'm your host, Bec Stewart. We're really grateful for episode support from Biz Dojo, Collider Wellington and our Patreon patrons. Our guest today is a well-travelled Nigella fan who comes from a hospitality dynasty. She lives a hard life, having once taste-tested 50 cheesecakes as part of her role as Festival Director of New Zealand's largest culinary festival. You might find her walking her dog on the south coast or cooking for a dinner party, but just don't ask her to choose the music. 2 Weeks in a Creative Endeavour, pleased to welcome Ciara Michael from Wellington on a Plate.
Hi.
Well, I mean, that leads us in quite well to how you sort of got involved in everything.
I started Welly on a Plate in 2009, and I started it with a colleague of mine. I had been living abroad overseas and came back to New Zealand in 2007, and I was lucky enough to get the job of being marketing manager for Wellington Tourism. And they sort of gave me a couple of challenges when I got there, and as you always do when you get into a new job, it's like, can you fix these things? One of them was like, fix the website, and that sort of seemed reasonably attainable because you could pay money and do that. But one of them was fix August. That's slightly more ambitious, and so it did take a couple of years to sort of get the idea going. But having lived overseas and being really interested in food already, and actually I grew up in a hospitality family, it was sort of like low-hanging fruit, I suppose. And I recognised, for one, I knew lots of restaurateurs around town. I'd babysat most of their kids at some point, and sort of had the idea that, New Zealand didn't have this a long food festival of any kind, had day-long events happening, but we didn't have anything that was sort of multi-day, and certainly nothing that would create that sort of destination piece. So we got together, I think it was about the start of June 2009, and I don't know how we did it, but in August 2009, Visa Wellington on a Plate was born, and the first year was quite small. It was great, but I think at the same time, there was still a lot of skeptics in that first year. But very quickly, people realised we were onto a good thing. And so we jumped from 30 restaurants in the first year, I think, to 80 in the second year. So it was very, very lucky that we sort of, we just sort of managed to get the balance right, I think, for people and that early on. And it's a pretty simple concept, and consumers loved it. And I think for us, we were particularly lucky that the great thing about doing things like this in Wellington is that consumers jump on the bandwagon very early. We're very early adopters here. And so we built this great ambassadorship locally. And still to this day, Wellingtonians are by far and away the greatest number of participants in the festival. And it's awesome because, it makes Wellington a great place to live in August. And that's what it's all about. So, and I'm a genuine believer that if somewhere's a great place to live, it's an awesome place to visit.
Let's be honest, August in Wellington's not perhaps
hideous. Absolutely hideous. And I suppose in a way, I feel like I've achieved my objective if I stop a few people going to Fiji.
Yeah,
they can go in September.
Wonderful.
No, but in all seriousness, if we want to keep them here and keep them interested, and most importantly, keep our restaurants busy and our suppliers busy. And it's great. I look at the numbers now, and I know that August is the busiest month of the year for our restaurants.
And was that the vision when you first started? Did you kind of project ahead 6 years and say, yeah, I want to be this thing that most Wellingtonians know exists and many of them attend?
Oh, absolutely. We wanted to be world famous in New Zealand, I suppose. And that's extended beyond now. I want to be world famous in the world. And I suppose, we're about to have year 9, and, our goal is much more ambitious now. And we do, have people visiting from overseas, and we know that because of course we can track ticket sales to our festival events. We know people are coming from overseas, which is great.
And was that part of the motivation to bring in the Burger Welly to kind of because it's quite elitist, isn't it, in some ways, so it's great to kind of hit another target market?
Funny thing about food is that everyone has to eat. So as a base level, that's quite a good starting point for running a festival. And I think, the key challenge for us is obviously presenting a program that's got enough variation interest so that you attract a broad range of people, and obviously that you satisfy the real foodies in the audience, because they love food festivals and they will tell you if they do not like your festival. So we want to make sure that they're kept happy with challenging events that either challenge them palate-wise or the experience is challenging in some way. We want to provide opportunities that are free so that we can attract families. And then you want to provide events that, you know, you've sort of got almost your emerging audience involved in. So that sort of next generation of punter, I suppose. And, you know, people call them millennials. They are a significant number of the attendees. And so we do need to make sure we sort of attract them as well. And in a way, that's a bit where Burger Wellington came from. But interestingly, the original motivation came out of a New York Times article, and it was headed, the burger is not quite the same thing that you thought it used to be. And it was sort of a play on the fact that around the world there was, you know, burgers with gold in them and diamond crust or whatever, and there was ridiculous burgers that were $350,000 and all these sorts of things. So we sort of took that article and thought, okay, how could we turn that into something that for Wellington? And the great thing about the burger is it is the absolute great equaliser. So it doesn't matter if you are a corner takeaway shop or a 5-star restaurant, you can do a burger. And actually the type of establishment you are doesn't define how good your burger can be. So it's really worked quite successfully. And, you know, I'll probably unashamedly admit it was a great way to get people out of their offices at lunchtime, because, you know, you can sort of go in, eat a burger and get out again in your hour lunch break. And it's worked very successfully in that space. So
it just amazes me that your target customer is potentially everybody.
It is, and actually, you know, that presents some huge challenges from a marketing point of view, because, you know, it's very hard to satisfy everybody in terms of the way you present anything. You know, you can't, not everyone's going to like the way you do it, and that is enormously challenging for the people who, you know, do our marketing. But I suppose at the same time, we need to sort of be as inclusive as we can, because back to my first point, everybody eats. So.
Also, the burgers are quite an exciting creative challenge for chefs, because there's nothing worse than having the possibility of doing anything. So having that real kind of structure around it, but going, oh, it might be a dessert burger, it might be lobster.
And what sort of bun do you use? Does it have sesame seeds or not? And is it brioche, or is it, you know, regular sourdough, or is it, what sort of patty is it? You know, what sort of fries do you serve on the side? Are they Jenga? Are they curly? There's many decisions that you know, that we, and I mean, and the great thing, I suppose, I have the privilege of going through the process right from the start, so I can see the evolution of what some of these people are creating. And quite frankly, some of the burgers, I just don't know how they keep coming up with the ideas, actually.
And you've also got People's Choice Burger Award as well, haven't you?
Very, very early on, we were in the position where we had people submitting their homemade apps. I shouldn't say homemade, that sounds a bit sort of primitive. Their own apps, spreadsheets, you know, sort of like
I've seen some of those
closed Facebook groups, all sorts of things that have been created. And so we realised that there was a massive opportunity to harness that enormous enthusiasm. And so we created the Burger Welly Award. And so it's done via, we have an app for Burger Welly, as we do for our cocktail Welly, and you can rate your favourite. And then we use an extremely scientific method of trying to sort out all the data, and the computer spits out the not the winners, the finalists, and the finalists then sort of go to a cook-off stage, and that's done in front of a live audience. And then we have this very highbrow range of judges, and they win nothing but the kudos, but that is enough to trade on for a year, because it's, you know, and we encourage them to keep the burger on so that people can go and try it. And yeah, I mean, it's awesome. I just love that sort of, that people just love that. They do get a wonderful trophy. It's a sort of a burger flip mounted.
Amazing.
And I mean, we're very lucky. Garage Project's a great partner in that, and, you know, they help with some incredible beers. So every year they have brewed us 3 limited edition beers. And so that's also a challenge as well for people to match flavours to, you know, beers. So It's pretty cool.
Oh, the creativity just seems endless. I mean, with all the breweries, especially with Garage Project, it feels like they're just pumping out different flavours and everything all the time.
Yeah, it's really, I find it really exciting, and it's a cool community to work with because I think they all thrive off each other as well. So, even some of the small ones are really willing to try different things because they are looking at what other people are doing, and I think that's really exciting, and consumers respond really well to it, which is great. So they love trying all this new stuff, and I just think we're very, very lucky to be here now, experiencing sort of almost watching an industry happen.
What, you've talked about New Zealand's food story. What do you think New Zealand's food story is?
Oh, it's such a big discussion point right now in the food industry. I think probably one of the biggest things that we are constantly challenged with in New Zealand, as sort of at a more holistic level around food, is that New Zealand hasn't really claimed a world sort of position for owning something. We didn't create sushi, or we didn't invent pasta. So, and probably the biggest challenge we have is people say, well, New Zealand doesn't have a food culture, and they talk about our national food like it's pineapple lumps. And that sort of, a little bit of me dies every time I read an article about that, because I sort of think, no, we are so much more. And I think the thing in New Zealand we're so fortunate of is that we have the world's greatest land and the world's greatest rivers and the world's greatest sea. And even though, there are, sure, things can be polluted at times or considered polluted, on a world scale, we are blessed here. And, our food tastes of our land and our sea and our rivers, and you can, and people who visit from overseas experience that. And so really, if you say, what is New Zealand's cuisine? Well, it might not be a style, but it's actually our ingredients and how lucky we are. And one thing I would just love to see is more restaurants, and actually not just restaurants, more people in their homes using what's from here. And, it sort of does sadden me a wee bit that we can walk down the supermarket aisle and buy dried just about every single herb in the world, except where's the Piko Piko? Where's our natural flavours of our country? And you can't buy them because we haven't taught people how to use them. So, we're quite happy to throw our dried oregano on something, but what about stuff that's from here? So I think we've still got a long way to go in New Zealand. If we were to say what was our national dish, I don't think it's roast lamb. I actually think our national dish, and there'll be lots of people who don't agree with me, but I think our national dish is actually baking. We are the world's greatest bakers.
Wow.
Cookies
Edmonds.
Well, totally, the Edmonds cookbook. If you were actually to say define New Zealand food, just pull out a copy of the Edmonds cookbook. If you think about how New Zealand started, we're a pastoral nation of farmers and farmers' wives, and that's a horribly generalist comment, farmers' partners.
It was like that then,
sometimes
though. Yeah.
The farmer can be the woman, but it's coming inside for a piece of Louise cake or a chocolate brownie or a piece of shortbread or an Anzac biscuit. That is what we're really good at, and that sort of almost forms a foundation of the sorts of people that we are. We like basic food in New Zealand, and I really believe baking is it.
For me, I always think seafood. So when people say, we don't have anything that's indigenous to New Zealand, it's like, what about paua? What about whitebait? What about, even fish and chips, which, is kind of a pretty lowbrow type of food to be eating. It's still often got beautiful teriyaki or something.
We have the best ingredients, we really do. It doesn't matter where it's from. But I think if you think about a dish, it's more about what we bake.
I love that. I haven't heard that. I love that perspective.
David here with Twice Podcast, hanging with Patrice. Just tell me what you do at the dojo.
I'm the community ambassador here. So I am the front of house. I'm kind of the first point of call for any new leads that kind of come in, any residents who are wanting to just check it out.
If you have a quick message for people who are thinking about co-working, well, what would you have to say to them?
Yeah, I think it's awesome. Honestly, just give it a go. I think once you get into a space like this as well, it's foreign from the outside world, but as soon as you're in here, you kind of get a really awesome understanding about what it is all about. We offer a 3 weeks trial, which is always great as well. So you can kind of come in, you give it a go. You will connect you with some awesome people. The staff crews here is awesome.
And the online code to use is Patrice is awesome. Is that the code?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Patrice, really appreciate giving some time.
No worries.
So thinking back, we're coming back to, how you started and your experience over the last 6 years. Is there anything that you would have done differently?
1,000 things. Not get into events? No. I think most people in events would probably say not get into events.
Yeah.
Events are quite stressful. But they're also hugely rewarding because you actually, produce a sort of tangible thing, whether it be a brochure or whatever happens at the end. And I suppose seeing the happiness on people's faces once they've experienced something is worth all that sort of blood, sweat and tears to get us there. But in terms of what we do differently, maybe, but I think, it's a festival generally, or not so much even a festival. We're more than a festival because we actually run a trust and we run various events. And things grow organically and opportunities are presented to you. And so you either take or don't take an opportunity. And I don't think we've taken too many wrong turns. I suppose, if I had only one wish, it's that perhaps things happened faster. Like sometimes things happen, but they take a while to sort of come to fruition. So an opportunity might present itself with a partner. You think, oh, that'd be great, but the wheels turn quite slowly in big business sometimes. So we have to wait to we're quite agile. There's not a lot of us, so we can move pretty quickly, change our minds pretty quickly, and there's no rule book. So, it's sure we might do things one way, but there's nothing to say we can't change the way we do things. It's just, what does everyone think? Yep, good, okay, we change it. And that's how decisions can quite often get made.
So you wish that other people, the only thing you regret is you wish other people were as good as you guys.
Oh, totally.
I love it.
No, but to be honest, I don't regret anything. And I mean, sure, things could have been done differently, but I think it's completely down to what opportunities are presented to you. And I think we've made the most of everything that we've had the opportunity to leverage or partner or, yeah. So I'm pretty happy. I suppose now we're sort of sitting on the sort of at that point that we, next year's 10 years of Visa Wellington on a plate, which is massive. And sometimes I can't believe I've got here or the festival's got here. And, to me that feels very grown up now. So it's not like, we're here to stay. It's not like it's, we're going to do it this year. It's like, yes, we will be back. And I suppose now it's that time, it's like, there's less room for error because we're grown-ups now.
You're not a kicky little startup anymore.
No, we can't really use the excuse, we're only new. Yeah.
What kind of personality traits make you great at what you do?
Look, events are great for multitaskers. And list makers because that's what it's all about. And if you can't think on your feet, do not get into events because inevitably you will be in a situation where something doesn't go to plan and you have to be able to just react instantly or pretend it was always going to happen that way, which is probably more often than not. So I think that's probably the main thing. It's just like totally be prepared for challenges be thrown at you constantly, think out of the square, and also be somebody who's prepared to throw their hand at everything because you can't afford to be someone who only does what their job description says because actually that's not how events work. Events work because everyone mucks in and they get the job done. And, I might be in the fortunate position that I run the trust and my official title, I have 3 titles, and I'm sort of, Festival Director of Visa Wellington on a Plate and Event Director of Biavana and Chief Executive of the Wellington Culinary Events Trust. All sounds very glamorous, but in reality, I'm at the moment I'm writing up an itinerary and I'm sending stuff off to people and packing stuff in boxes and does someone need help with goodie bags? Yep, okay, we'll go do it's basically what needs to be done. And I think that's the sort of person that gets into events is somebody who's just willing to do it. And I do have a bit of a motto, Mace, that I live by, just do it. It sounds, obviously Nike took that, so I can't claim fame to it, but it is very much just do it. Just
do it and make sure it tastes good.
Well, yeah. I suppose, I love cooking myself and entertain a lot. But I am pleased that when it comes to actually running the festival, sort of our job is done when we get there. I have occasionally had to muck in, like we've done chef demonstrations. There's not quite enough people to prep stuff, so I'm out the back, with an apron on. But that's only happened a couple of times, but it has happened.
Oh yeah, no, that's how I feel with pomegranate. Sometimes it's like, I'm the big boss and also the one chopping onions and delivering stuff still.
But isn't that cool? Because actually, it also makes you realise you feel in touch with what's going on, and also, I want my team to know that I'm there. Don't want to sit in a room with the door shut and I only, take visitors between 11 and 12. When you run a festival, obviously there's so many stakeholders. You've got your staff, you've got your your sponsors and your, sort of city stakeholders, and you've got the restaurants, you've got, suppliers. There's so many people. I mean, it's in the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. And, I make it very clear to people in the restaurant industry, particularly if you've got a problem, something's not working, just call me, email me, accost me in the street, whatever. And they do, and that's cool because, that only makes us better.
Well, I was going to say that, when you're talking about the beer industry and how everyone's kind of helping each other and feeding off each other, I've really found that, restaurant and hospitality industry in Wellington to be like that as well. That, of course, there's natural business competition and that's healthy,
yeah.
But there is really that sense of helping each other out and we're all in the same boat.
I mean, it's quite interesting when I go to other cities around New Zealand, people often say, Wellington's so collaborative. And it's actually nice to agree, and it's not just a story. It's actually true. And, it does sort of hearten me a lot when there's some projects that we do where we bring people together and they all work, they want to work together, and it's really exciting. And I don't know, it makes it feel like it's a real community. It's not just this sort of group of people selling food.
Looking at the program for this year, so there's a nose to tail event. Coming back into your previous statement around using what's around us, what food trends have you sort of seen come and go in the last few years?
There's so many so-called food trends, aren't there? Korean.
Oh, you reckon that's on the way out?
Haven't quite seen it hit properly yet.
People keep saying it's about to.
People keep telling me Korean's coming, and I'm just not quite sure where it is. There's a bit of kimchi about, but I'm just not sure where it.
And
the
fried
rest
chicken,
of it
the fried chicken's
fried
there.
chicken, actually, there is a fried chicken place that opened just today. That's great. One more.
That's Tommy Millions.
That's lucky. Lucky fried chicken as compared to the other fried chicken. Right next to Tommy Williams, which was cool. Had it for lunch just to make sure it was great. Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Got to be in there. So that was awesome. I'd say Korean's probably one. I mean, there's certainly elements of that about, but I don't sort of see this flood of Korean restaurants opening.
Well, it's not like Mexican, which really seems to be everywhere and has been for years. Which people keep telling me that Korean was the next Mexican.
I think the other sort of trend that's very much here to stay is that locally sourced. The other big one is seasonally focused food, obviously. So, you do get a lot of people who completely follow the trend, and I think that's very much expected now. I think New Zealanders have got very good at learning and understanding that you're not going to get strawberries on your meal in July. In terms of the sort of more cuisine types, I mean, there's still, I hear rumours of things like Filipino food coming through, and sort of experimenting with those sorts of flavours. There's certainly, I know in Australia, been sort of a growth in sort of Peruvian, that sort of Latin American style food. That hasn't necessarily translated here yet, although there's elements of it at restaurants I've certainly experienced. So, yeah, I think, the great thing is that the more chefs travel, they go away and they bring back great ideas. I still think there's a lot to be done in the barbecue space. So many journalists and food researchers do really they do identify the same trends. So there definitely is trend in food. It's not like it's one person's idea versus another person's idea. The world does move in trend circles, but it's
But as you say, there's some trends that might just be more of a sea change. It might be a real change of consciousness, especially with nose to tail of the waste, that it's not something that's going to come and go in the next 5 years.
Why should people care about Welly on a plate?
You should care because it's about embracing what's great here in Wellington and in New Zealand. It's a chance to also experience chefs' expression of, great cuisine, and also chefs' experimentation of great cuisine. And, this is stuff that they don't do every day often. They want to try new things. And we're really excited about some of the new initiatives we've started. Like this year, for example, we've got a few chef collaborations happening with chefs coming from overseas and from around New Zealand to Wellington. And that's really cool because there's the opportunity to get those chefs into restaurants, people can try them. But the thing that makes me most excited about that, which is probably something a lot of people don't think about, is that the opportunity it affords the restaurant in terms of upskilling the capability of their own staff and having world-class chefs in your restaurant, for a few days. What an amazing training opportunity for your own staff to learn from somebody who's come from another place.
If you have a goal as an individual but also as an organisation, how do you want those people who attend to feel? What do you want them to go away with as a feeling or an emotion?
I suppose overall I'd like people to come away excited about, our food scene, excited about living here in Wellington, and just excited about the experience that they've had.
Final follow-up question. It's the middle of the festival. I'm just going to project you to it. All the hard work's done and dusted.
Yes, sort of, yes.
Things are happening. How do you want to feel?
Not tired.
Very cool.
Yeah. How do I want to feel? I want to feel, I suppose, a sense of satisfaction. But I think also, the show never stops for us. So at the same time, we're always thinking about next year. So, it may surprise people that it does take at least more than 12 months actually to organise the festival. So we're already thinking about next year. And, who do we talk to? Who do we, what are going to be some of the big ideas that we can work on? And I think that's probably the key thing is I want to be inspired for what's going to happen next. And as I mentioned, next year's 10 years. So, it's a big one for us and we want to make it big.
And if you weren't doing this, what would you like to be doing as an alternate?
An astronaut. I don't know. I think I probably am doing what I want to be doing. I love travel and I love food and travel, and food and travel are my greatest sort of motivations together, I suppose. And I would love to adventure off to a few places I haven't been to actually, sort of really get under the surface of some places. I'd like to spend a year somewhere. I've been fortunate and lived overseas, and obviously, we lived in India and that sort of thing, but that was in a very different capacity. So I think it would be great to actually go somewhere and just move into a village and
start a food movement there, start a food festival.
Yeah, maybe. It could be quite small to start with, the 2 village restaurants, but it's a festival. Or maybe not.
If you had any advice for people wanting to take your job from you in the future, do you have any key advice that you'd offer to them?
The way that festivals work are based on partnership and collaboration. So you can never do it on your own. You rely so heavily on so many people to make it happen. And that's not just your immediate staff, but, other organisations that bring ideas and concepts to you, ways that you can leverage, ways that you can communicate new audiences. And really thinking outside the square is really important in terms of, how could we make that partnership work? As a very small example, one of our partners this year is Mini. They've created a really cool promo this year that they're going to sort of as a bit of a surprise and delight. And they've partnered with a couple of the events in the program, and they're doing, Mini drives you home so that you don't need to worry about, leave your keys at home and don't worry about drinking and driving, all those things. And, it's just it's a nice surprise and delight. So our customers benefit, which is cool. And they benefit because they get the chance to meet some customers. The customers get to experience the vehicle and they can engage with them. But also it's a great positive benefit for the festival overall.
How is it that you manage to maintain and manage your energy and also your focus with such a complex, multifaceted series of events?
I think it must be a personality trait. I'm quite a high energy person. We all strive to achieve this work-life balance. My work does take a lot of time, and often my life is work. But I think also too it's about surrounding yourself with people who have equally positive energy and love what they do as much as you do. And we're a small, tight team. I think sometimes people think that there's these casts of thousands that run festivals, and we certainly bring in the skills that we need when we need it. But our immediate team is 3.5 people.
With a team that size, what would you have done for the rest of the week if you didn't have 2 events to run?
Who knows? Who knows? It doesn't just stop at those 2 things. That's just August sorted.
Nice.
There is 11 other months.
What is one item that is analog, not digital, that you can't live without?
A lipstick?
That's a good answer.
Probably lipstick. Yeah, no, I think, it's dreadful, isn't it? We're so reliant on technology, your phone.
Can't think of something.
I think when I go away on holiday, the absolute 3 essentials aside from your passport if you're going somewhere, iPhone, iPad, Kindle, and they are all electronic. Can't live without them. Probably, I suppose that, and my dog.
Your dog can be
She's
an
very
answer.
analog.
Dog has been an answer before. Yeah, it's like, is dog analog?
Yeah. No, I can't live without her.
Excellent.
Just a quick description.
Is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to?
Look, I mean, it's sort of, I don't want to sound cliched, but probably the biggest shout out is to the Wellington Hospo crowd, because they are amazing. And, at the end of the day, we had this idea to run a festival, but frankly, we just organise it. We don't deliver it. And they are amazing. And, they put up with our requests and our demands and deliver these amazing experiences. And yeah, I mean, they are just incredible. And probably the other big shout out is actually to our major sponsor, Visa. They have been with us for 8 years, and we're very lucky to have them. I mean, they are incredible. A lot of people in Wellington don't see what they do for us. They do all of our marketing north of here, and it's incredible. Like, just so fantastic. If anyone wants a lesson in how to be a great partner.
Nice one. And where can we find you publicly online?
You can find us at visawellingtononaplate.com or vwoap.com, bevana.co.nz, and if you want to follow me on Twitter, at MarthaMail, don't ask me why.
It just leaves me to thank our lovely supporters and sponsors, Biz Dojo, Collider Wellington, Patreon patrons, and Yeastie Boys today. Thank you so much, Ciara, for coming in and taking an hour out of your time, which was a very busy time of year. Really appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure.
Just like herrings.
Yeah. Dirt. Moss.
Literal
Twigs. Twigs.
Not expecting any invites from the Norwegian embassy then.
No. I'd happily talk to them.
What were your first, worst and best jobs?
Actually, my first and worst were the same, and that probably is quite normal for a lot of people. My first job temping was making credit cards. Like, as in punching the credit cards.
Wow.
Yep. And also...
They had a human to do that?
They did in
At
1906. And... Also, it was before credit cards were manually processed. Automatically processed. They were done manually, zip-zap machines. So I was in the office of this particular bank having to search on microfiche for claims for people who, didn't agree with their credit card statement and they wanted to match. And so you can imagine how many, millions of zip-zap forms you would have to look through. Hideous. That was my first temping job.
You know what they are, right?
I actually wondered that. So microfiche is this. This actually starts to show that you're older, like this film about that big, and they reduce down like 1 million times something onto it. So it's a bit like a slide, but you put it under this glass plate, and then you looked into this sort of TV screen, and everything was blown up, and then you could press print. My best job, well, I mean, it would be wrong for me not to say what I do now. I do love what I do, but I absolutely loved working for Tourism New Zealand. And probably within that, my favourite part was we established an office in India, and I did all that project, and that was pretty cool.
I saw that you'd done a bit of travel there.
I was pretty renegade in those days because I was young and off in these random places. Like, I've been to Saudi Arabia and places like that I don't know anyone who's been to Saudi Arabia except someone's sister who was a nurse.
What do you think was your sort of like the best part and the worst part of India?
Well, the best part is probably the food, which would be an obvious response from someone like me, but probably that sort of cultural immersion, like everything you do is just so different to everyday New Zealand. And the worst part, I mean, again, probably quite obvious, is it's a very, very poor country. And there's a lot of poverty that's, it's just so out of control. And that side of it is just so hard to deal with. And the more time I spent there, you actually become quite immune to it in a way, which is a horrible thing to admit. But
it's really confronting how much you kind of disassociate from it by the end of your time there, and then you kind of think, actually, I don't want to be this type of person.
Yeah, no, totally. And I mean, it's funny because I go back quite frequently. I think I counted up my various passport stamps. I've been to India 25 times in my life, and the last trip I took my sister for a very good friend's wedding, and it was neat seeing it through the eyes of someone who hadn't been before again, because I'd forgotten a lot of the things
that are so wonderful about
was
the
seeing.
wildness.
So,
yeah.
things would just pass you by because I'd seen them 1,000 times. So, yeah.
Should we try some beer? Let's
try
have some
beer.
beer. Hey, so today we've got a Yeastie Boys Gunnamatta Earl Grey IPA, which just sounds so exciting. None of the labelling is very Earl Grey like. It's yellow and it's got some waves on it.
Nice.
So you're involved with Beervana.
It's a team effort to get us to the finish line. And of course, there are many, many people who help us along the way. And we own both Wellington and Beervana. So it's very exciting. I've learned a lot about beer in the last 3 years.
Wow, let's put some of that to the test. So what are your first thoughts on this brew?
Oh, you can taste that Earl Grey, can't you?
The bergamot, yeah.
No, I have to say, I don't usually like an Earl Grey. I'm an English breakfast sort of girl. But floral.
Extremely floral. God, I'm slurring already.
One sip in.
One sniff of the barmaid's apron.
When would you find yourself drinking this fine brew?
Possibly a bit cliched to say it's an afternoon brew, but actually it's quite refreshing.
I'd be worried if you're saying it was a morning brew.
Yeah,
so.
well, possibly, which would be perfect for English breakfast tea. But I think it's quite refreshing. Probably a nice sort of, 4 o'clock.
Yeah. Well, it's 4 o'clock
exactly about now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you had it before?
I have.
Are there many beers that you haven't had before?
Oh, plenty. I don't think I would ever attest to being the world's greatest beer drinker, but I have tried a lot, but there are so many to try.
What do you think about these new sour beers that are coming out?
I think they're delicious, absolutely delicious. And I think probably for myself, being a recent beer convert, shall we say, they've probably been a good entry point. Because I do enjoy a glass of wine, and I think a lot of the profile of sour beers is close to a glass of wine. So I find them delicious.
No, I feel the same. If they're not too wild, like some of them really make one of my eyes just kind of start shrinking up. But
almost like sherbet, sort of, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, the backs of your jaw. But some of them, like this one that I love called Quincy Jones. I can't remember who makes it, but that's so close to sort of like a wine or a cider, just perfect for a sunny day. So that's kind of, as you say, that nice little entry point.
Yeah, no, I do like them.
Traditionally, we do scores out of 5. 5 being absolutely incredible, and 0 being, well, pretty bad.
Oh, it's not bad. I would say it's a comfortable 3.5.
I am a fan of Earl Grey, and I almost feel that all of that bergamot is a distraction from the actual beer. So as much as I like both of those things individually, I'm not really a fan of the match. So I would go, probably a 3. It's drinkable.
Sits quite up front, that flavour.
It does. What about you, Dave?
I was going to go 4. It's great up front, but then it's just sort of gone.
That's right.
So that would be a 3. So I'm going to go 3.5 as well in total.
Well, it's good that we're at least, we have a common opinion.
Hey, this is David from 2 Weeks in Creative Endeavour. This is just a really quick conversation with my amazing co-host, Bec Stewart, about the reasons why this is her episode. Just talk to me about your first experience of leading an episode. How was it for you?
I think it was definitely a really different experience from being a co-host. What I found, I guess, both easy and difficult with Ciara is that she obviously is an amazing speaker. She's very confident and she knows exactly what to say. But in that way, it felt quite practiced. And so potentially I almost felt a bit intimidated. But ultimately, I quite liked being the boss. Quite like the sound of my own voice. And luckily I didn't have to talk that much. I mean, the story's there, she's the star is the guest. So all I had to do was kind of facilitate it. It was great getting into those conversations around food and food trends and the hospitality industry, because I felt like we really connected on that. I'm looking forward to doing it again and better.
You get another chance to try it again in 2 weeks, or in our case, tomorrow.
Yes, true. Yeah, but I'm not lead hosting tomorrow, am I?
Not unless you want to.
Oh no, I'm okay. I want to get back in the passenger seat.
who is the guest you'd most like on in the future?
Yeah, that's a hard one. Well, definitely episode 100, we're going to interview you, and that's something that we've already decided. Oh, do you know, I'd love to talk to Helen Clark. Actually, I saw her, and I know that's a really daggy answer, but I saw her in conversation recently at the BSA, and she's just really funny now. I think because she doesn't have to be this like big head of state kind of thing, or UNDP, and she's just a bit of a crack up, and she's got that great voice, that really that epic Helen Clark voice that I don't know. I think that would make me shy though. I would really shy up in front of her, so perhaps that's not the best choice.
Oh yeah. No, I'll put Helen on the Trello board and
chuck her up there.
Start making some odd steps.
She retweeted me once, so I think we're basically best friends.
Awesome.